Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Sadowski again. We're here for our Math Module 6, Lesson 12 homework. Hopefully your quiz went well after completing Topic C with our decimal place value and ordering and comparing decimals. Today we're going to look at adding some things together and still kind of focusing on that decimal place value. So you can see in our first example from the homework, they had a tenth and then they wanted to add that to 8 hundredths. And 1/10 is really like having 10 hundredths, right? So if we do the 1/10 and we think of it as 10 hundredths plus our 8 hundredths, what we really end up with are a total of 18 hundredths. Now, you know how much I love dots. Okay, we know I don't like the dots. I'm totally being sarcastic. So you can also look at this as if I have 1/10 and I'm going to be adding 8 hundredths to it, if I want to know how many hundredths that makes, I simply look and voila, it is 18. So there's more than one correct way to do this. For this, if you drew your 2/10, that's fabulous. If you drew your 3 hundredths, that's great. If you did like they were suggesting, you would be moving these over, right? And you would draw 10 of them. And I'm doing it for video's sake so that I'm modeling 2 ways to do this problem. So now we have 10 and 10 and 3 more. So we're looking at a total of 23 hundredths. If you like my shortcut, you had 2/10. You had 3 hundredths. If we look at it together, it makes 23 hundredths. Okay? Over here, again, 1/10. This time they have 14 hundredths. So there's 5 of them. There's 10 of them, 11, 12, 13, 14 of them. They wanted you to realize that taking this tenth is like having the 10 in this box. So that's 10 and 10, which is 20, plus the 4 more, we're dealing with 24. If you had 1/10 and you added it to 14 hundredths, you now have 2/10 and 4 in the hundredths. So this would be 24, right? Okay, so let's get down here to the bottom half of the page. We have a tenth plus, I'm sorry, I skipped one. 1/10 plus 2 hundredths. Well, that's going to be 12 hundredths, correct? Actually, I'm skipping a step here. My bad. So they want us to realize that this 1/10 is how many hundredths? Well, we know a tenth is 10 hundredths. So if we take that plus this, so 10 plus 2 is 12. That's what they want us to show down here. So again, if we take this 4/10 and we convert it over here to hundredths, we are really dealing with 40 hundredths. Plus the 11 that we already had, we're looking at 51 hundredths. Down here, if we take 8/10, move it over here, that would be like having 80 hundredths. Plus 25 hundredths, we now have 105 hundredths. If we have, they switched it around. 43 hundredths is still 43 hundredths. 6/10, however, is 60 hundredths. So we now have 103 hundredths. So hopefully this didn't confuse you over here. Now to the version that I like to see it. I like to do my adding in numbers, not in word form or unit form. So we're dealing with 3/10 plus 7 hundredths. Keeping in mind that 3/10 is the same as 31 hundredths, right? So if you had 30 and 7 more, we have 37 over 100. And they want us to put our answers as a decimal, so we'll go farther and we'll have 37 hundredths. Down here, 5/10, 40 hundredths. Well, again, 5/10 is like having 51 hundredths. So what we're really equaling here, if you have 50 and 40 more, you're going to end up with 90 over 100. And in decimal form, it will look like that. When we get over here, we have 16 hundredths and 5/10 is like saying 51 hundredths. So this 16 plus 50 is going to be 66 over 100, which is 66 hundredths, like that in decimal form. Down here, 8/10, again, it's like we have 80 over 100. 80 plus 20 is 100 100ths, which we should all know equals 1. In the middle section, again, they want us to solve, writing our answers as a decimal. Again, you can start thinking this, if you want to rewrite it like I was doing up here, or if you just want to think of it as, okay, I know I'm dealing with 50 over 100, right? So 50 plus 53, that's going to be 103 over 100. That's like having 1 whole and 3 hundredths left over. When we get over here, again, it's like having 80. So 27 plus 80, we're dealing with 107 over 100. Well, that's like having 1 whole and 7 over 100. You think of it as money. If you had 107 pennies, that would leave you with, why did I write it like that? That was interesting. If you had pennies, you would have 100 of them makes the dollar, and then you'd have 7 pennies left over. I often like to think of decimals as money. Over here, we have our 40 plus 78. Well, 4 plus 7 is 11 with the 8. So we have 118 over 100. Again, if we pull out 100 of them, that's $1. We're left with 18 cents. And this one, that would be like 70. So 7 plus 9, what is that? 16 with the 8 in the ones place. So we're looking at 1 and 68 hundredths. Okay. At the bottom, Cameron measured this much rainwater on the first day. On the second day, he measured this much of rainwater. How many total inches of rainwater did he measure on the first 2 days? Well, he had 65 100ths. And then he added to that 83 100ths. Now, we could do this in fraction form. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this problem. Okay. First way would be, okay, we've got fractions. I don't really like to add numbers like this, but if I look at my ones, 3 and 5 makes 8, and 8 plus 6 is 14. So we're like that, and that would be 1 and 48 over 100. Okay, and does it say it has to be in a decimal? It did not say that our answer had to be in a decimal, but if you wanted to put it in a decimal, you could. And these are inches, right? Now the second way, if you prefer decimals, 65 and 83, both of them in the hundredths place. If we want to add them up because we're finding the total, this is often much easier on the eyes to do our adding this way. The thing to remember when adding decimals is that you must line up the decimal spots. Whenever you're adding or subtracting, always, always, always line up the decimals. It is not that way for multiplying or dividing. Okay, those are totally separate rules. It's kind of like with fractions. When we're adding fractions, we have to have like denominators. This is making sure they have like denominators by lining up those spots. Multiplication and division, totally different. Okay, so either way, you're going to end up with 1 and 48 hundredths inches of water. All right, and there you have it. We have gotten through lesson 12.